welcome everyone to today's Sylvan Stratum webinar. And we are going to talk about year-end maintenance. So it's that time of year where we have to think about next year. And are we ready? Do we have Stratum ready for the new year? Are the calendars updated? Are the necessary tables created for all the different categories of data that we store within the Stratum environment? Some things to think about. So let's talk about those. What we want to talk about today is, category. Which categories and calendars that need to be updated for Stratum? And from that, how do we do it? How do we build, import, and view calendars? And we'll discuss the difference between those two. We'll also talk about defining and creating the tables for all the different categories of data that you store. We probably won't talk about creating indexes, only because that's kind of obsolete at this point, since the evolved product does not really use that any longer. And then adding and deleting years in the connector, another piece that you would need to make sure that you review and update accordingly. So what do you need to know? What categories are being used? And you may already just know that from historical use. Maybe some of that data has been passed on to you. Maybe you've been trained. And typically these lists of categories involve actual sales, open orders, budget, forecast, inventory. Those are, all the different classic categories of data that you would store within Stratum. It says Info Center there because we have a product that actually helps you with this. It exposes what is being used. It's basically a usage application. If you don't have that implemented, it's something that I would recommend. So that would make this job easier. What calendars are used by the categories? Okay, so basically two different types of calendars to be used. The import calendar and then the view calendar. And then basically the import calendar is what tells the import process how to bucket the data from the transaction date you're passing, or from any date, whatever date that's on the record. This import calendar helps you identify how to bucket, where that record will end up, in the monthly bucket structure or the daily bucket structure. The view calendar is basically for the views. So when you run a view and your users are using time dimensions and time ranges, those calendars are derived from the view calendar side of things. So two things to look at. And then one thing basically to be aware of here is that you may not be using the import calendars. If you're already doing bucketing and passing the bucket number yourself to the import file, then this is yet another area that you could disregard if that's the case. So I know I've seen some implementations like that where import calendars were not necessary. Okay. And we'll, if you have any questions or whatever, we'll take those at the end. And also I've got a demo. So what years are to be maintained for each category? So basically you need to know, how many years you want to maintain. Obviously you'll be creating new years as you evolve with the product. But this will help you if you want to drop off years. You don't necessarily have to do anything from a calendar maintenance perspective, but you could deselect years. You can clear out some historical years to save some, disk space. I know some customers do that. Other customers like to keep the history, at least, on the relational side of things. But then they can deselect the year to, make that unavailable on the viewer side of things. So you can manipulate that as needed. And then finally, it says something about DSLs being tuned, and we can just pretty much disregard that if you're a viewer, if you're using the viewer product. That's something you don't really need to be concerned about. So here's the import calendar menu and all of its glory. Nevertheless, this is a menu that you would go into to create the import calendar, and that's done by all the different categories that you keep here. As you can see, the screenshot is showing the actual sales, but there's a pull down menu, and you would need to maintain the import calendar at each category. It says structure code there, but basically it's a category as well. And so for budget and open order, if you're using import calendars, you want to make sure that you go to each structure code to add in the new year's import calendar. There is there's a way to generate dates and whatnot within this calendar. So if it's a monthly or a daily calendar, um, it's pretty easy to get these created. So we'll go into these menus and we'll take a look at that. This is kind of going through the steps of creating the import calendar. Probably better off just looking at the demo when we do that. You can make adjustments. So maybe if the generate didn't really work as expected, you could make adjustments as needed for the different buckets and their ending dates. So that's the import calendar side of things, and then on the view set side of things. The view calendar, this is where we'll be adding new years and maintaining calendars so that when the users are running views, they are the calendar are up to date. They're able to select a new year. So this is all done through the administrative UI. Again, we'll take a look at that. And you would go into the view set menu to create your new year. Uh, Pretty simple. You add in the new year and save it. We'll do that together in the demo. Uh, it's pretty simple. I mean, this is not rocket science. And then when you do that, you have your new year created. Then you can actually go into your existing calendars and map the new year accordingly. So for the daily and the monthly calendars, you would then want to go in and maintain your calendars as needed. There are some shortcuts that we can go into if needed, but basically this is something that you would need to go in and make sure that the start and the end mapping bucket numbers are properly structured, and that your start and end dates are accurate as well. Again, we're going to go through these menus together. This piece here, not necessary, not particularly necessary because the load, the nightly load will set your current dates accordingly, but you could go in and set your dates, your current date, manually within the view set calendar menus as well, but not necessary. This is something that is done automatically on the Stratum load every night. Okay, and then finally, we have to create tables so that, well, not finally per se, but we have to make sure that all of our categories have the New Year's tables created. And so we would go into the database install module to do this. So instead of the admin UI, you're actually using a different menu to create the database tables. And again, this is done by category, structure code. So you need to, again, want to make sure that you know which ones you're using and maintain those accordingly so that you have the new tables created for the new year. Finally, there's two steps here. You'll define the new years, and then there's another menu to go in and actually create them. And then you can go in, as you can see, I've got actual sales highlighted there. The red font means that those tables actually have data in them, and they will not get recreated if they are red. And then everything else that you can see there are black. Your new tables will be black more than likely as you created them brand new. They will show up in black font. And then you can go ahead and click on create tables to get those created. It goes through the scripts to create the tables, and then you can close it out when you're done. That's the index piece that we can ignore. This is only for folks just using Planner only. that fits your criteria, then we can talk offline about how to do some of this other stuff. Just make sure there's some back end commands that need to be reviewed to make sure that you're not doing the GI load up on the Windows side or DA load up on the 400 side. You want to make sure that those commands are maintained accordingly because you might be specifying the years to process, and you want to make sure that you add a new line in for the new year. And then finally, the connector, you would want to go in and make sure that the new years are selected for each one of your structures. So you'll go into your measure group, into the connector, and measure groups. You'll edit your measure groups and then go into all the partitions for each measure group to make sure that you got the years that you want to make available to the users, that those are selected and saved. We do this as a service. So if you don't want to do it yourself, you can contact me. It's not it's about a half day worth of services essentially. So, which equates to what, $800. So if you want to just have us do it, we can do it for you. So contact me if that's what you want. Otherwise, you can do it yourself, and we're going to go into a demo of how to go through some of these steps. And this is being recorded, by the way, so this will be published up on our YouTube channel. Just if you are not subscribed, just go ahead and search for Sylvan Software on YouTube, and then subscribe, and then you'll get alerted to the new upload. Wrong server. Sorry about that. Let's see. Okay, so basically we want to log back on. Okay, so we want to go through some of the menus of what we just looked at. Here's the database install menu. Nothing too spectacular. The admin menu, as you can see, looks similar, but it has different menu options up there. Also, the icons are different as well. Typically, you'll go into the database install menu first, and then you'll go into installation, define tables. Like if we were to look at the structure codes, this is basically a list of all the structure codes that are available to you, and 9 times out of 10, you're probably 10 times out of 10, you're not using all of these. So it helps to know which ones you need to maintain. So, you could go in there and review the ones, all the structure codes that you have, but you're not really going to do anything there. You're going to basically go here to define your new year tables. So for sales, for instance, I've got tables going out to 2021. So, if I wanted to create 22 or 23 tables, then I can do that here. As you can see, I've already got 2023 up here in my year field. And then if I click on perform for actual sales, which is highlighted, it'll go ahead and create that 2003 definition. It doesn't necessarily create the tables yet, but it created a definition for 2023. Okay. I could do the same thing for 2024 as well. Boom. So now I've got 23 and 24 created for actual sales. Now you're going to do that with all your different structures that you may want to maintain. For instance, if I go down here to open orders, that's daily as well, and I can create those same tables as I created for actual sales. So now those are created as well, 22 and 24. So that's what you do in the define table menu. Pretty simple, as long as you know where you're going, right, and which ones to maintain. Create tables would be next. So now that you define them, they need to be physically created. So if I go into create tables, I can then highlight actual sales, and then it will go in and it will tell you, which tables have data in them. So typically you're going to see this for actual sales, probably for all your categories that you're storing data for. You're going to see red font, which signifies that you have data for those tables. Now, yes, my demo data only goes up to 2017 because, well, it's a static environment. It's a demo, right? So This is not something that we keep loading over and over again. Um, so in all honesty, I've got all the rest of my tables. There's the new 23, 24 tables that I created. So those are going to get recreated along with all the rest of these as well. So how do we kick that off? Well, as you can see, the create tables, we click on that. It runs through the scripts to create those tables in black font. And then I can just, once it finishes, I can hide that log, and I'm just created the tables for my actual sales category. So now I can go to all the other different categories I need to maintain. I also had open orders, and you guys are going to have more. So make sure you have a list of which ones you want to work with and maintain. Here's open orders. There's 23, 24 tables I just created. And I'm going to do the same thing there. I'm going to click on create tables, and it's going to create those tables. So now those tables are created, and I'm good to go. I'm basically done with this menu. Now you need to go into the administrative menu. And if you don't know where these are, you're going to have a program group. If you have these menus installed, you're going to have a program group called Stratum or something along those lines. Mine's called Stratum Daily Demo. And you can see the administration UI and the database install UI. Those are the ones that you want to go into. And those are the ones that I'm showing today. We just looked at the database install menu to create our year data tables for year, the new years, and we created them. And now we're going to go into the administrative UI to work with our import and our view calendars. So here we have the administrative UI open. And if I go into utilities, there's my import calendar menu. As I select it, I will go to actual sales, and I can see that I need to create new import calendars. Actual sales is a daily structure, so this should make it pretty simple. So if I want to create 22, for instance, I'll click on new, type in my year, 2022. I click OK, and then I give it a start date, which is typically going to be 2022, January 1st. I then click on generate, and voila, it creates all my buckets for my import structure all the way to 365, 1231. I then need to save that. So now that's been saved. I now have 22 available, and I could do the same thing for 2023 and 2024 and so on and so forth, right? So I just change that to 2024, generate, and then I can review as needed. Everything looks good there, except for one thing. What do we see different between 22 and 23? You know, we do see leap year coming into play there. So you want to make sure that your leap year, I think, is in 2024 actually. So that's why that went into 2023. Sorry about that. So you want to do that for 2023. There we go. And that should be 365. Yeah. I'll go ahead and save that. And then 2022 should be 365 as well. So let's do 2024, which is a leap year. So when I do this, I click on generate, then I go down, and indeed there's 366 buckets because February 29th is a day. So that's next year. So leap year is next year. We want to make sure that we accommodate that in both the import calendars and the open or view calendars. Sorry, I had open orders on my mind because that's where I was going next. So we'll go to open orders. We'll make sure that those import calendars exist. And again, if you come here and you don't see any calendars created for at all, probably means you're not using them. So don't sweat it. That just means that it's just a step that another thing you don't have to manage. Look at it as a blessing. But if you do see these years here up to 22, that's going to tip you off that, yeah, you're going to, or 23, I should say, because you're probably going to be creating 24 tables. So that probably means you're going to need to go there. So, all right, same thing here. I do the same thing, right? I go through the same exercise because open orders is daily. Nothing new there. And I save the years accordingly. If I had something that's monthly, it's just as easy. For instance, for budget, if I wanted to do like 2021, 22 tables for budget, um, generate, it does that for the monthly buckets. Real simple. Okay. So that's your import calendar side of things. And make sure you go through all the different ones to all the different categories that you're loading to make sure that you cover off on the import calendar. Moving over to the view calendar side of things, we need to go in, create the new necessary new years so that we can map them. So 2024, 2025 might need to be created so that open orders can be accommodated. Anything that's bucketed out into the future, like forecasts or budgets, you want to think about those years that you need to maintain within Stratum that are storing not only the current year or the next year, but following years going forward as well. So make sure that you think about that. So I go into the admin UI, we were over here and now we're going to move over to data views and we go into view sets first because we want to create our new year. So we'll highlight the year and we'll select our view items. It then goes into all the different years that we've already have created. So if I wanted to add in 2022, I click on add. It then creates a spot for me to type in my year. Make sure you type it in, right? And make sure all this says 2022 because that's the year I want to add in. I can also add in 2023. And 2024. So those are all added in. I close that, I save it. It'll warn you this is going to, you know, kind of prompt you to tell you that you need to do some things, like obviously do some mapping exercises. But go ahead and say yes to that, and then I'll go ahead and save those changes for you. So I like to just go back in to make sure that those changes have been saved. They look good. Everything looks hunky-dory there. So you can close that view set menu out now that the years have been created. And then I can go in and start my mappings for the new year. And so we know that actual sales is daily. So we know that there's a relationship from our structure codes to a calendar. And these are called view groups. So actual sales we know is daily. So obviously it's going to be using the daily calendar. However, budget forecasts are, typically monthly. So you want to make sure you go into the necessary calendars, daily, monthly, whatever the ones that you have that are defined. And you want to make sure that the mappings are done for the new years. So let's go into daily. We can see there's all kinds of different, you don't have anything to do here. You just want to make sure you highlight daily and go into view buckets. And then it'll show you all the different time frames that I need to map. I know it looks daunting, but it's not too bad. In this case, then I need to pull down and select the new year. And we're going to look at 2024 because it's a leap year. So how would we bucket it, our days for the leap year? So for daily, unfortunately, there's no easy way to do this other than just tabbing through the different fields here. I'm just I'm just holding down my tab button and it's going in and it's doing it, my buckets right until I get to February. And then February, I want to make sure that 2029, February 29th is bucketed. And in this instance, it is. So we want to make sure that we see bucket 60 there for February 29th. So that all looks good. And you're going to do this all the way through to 365 to the end of December. And you're gonna go ahead and finish that out for your days. Again, I'm just holding down the tab button and it's doing all my 2024 mappings for my days. Pretty fascinating. right? Getting there to the end. We should see 366 buckets at the end, given that we have the extra day in the year. So there. Okay, so there's 366 as we thought. December 31st, 366 looks perfect. So you'll do that for your years. If we're doing that for 2023, and I won't do the entire year for 23, but I'll show you how to do a non-leap year. In this case, we'll go to February, and we're going to skip February 29th because it doesn't exist in 2023. So how do we do that? What we do is we leave that blank. We don't do anything there. And then we pick up 60 right there. And we want to make sure that that's March the 1st of 2023, right? And then I can continue my tabbing because it basically builds upon the prior record, right? So that's the daily mapping. That's what you'll need to do to go through the different years, finish those out, and then you can go ahead and save that. You'll click on complete and save to save that away. If you have fiscal months, that's going to be different. You might have to bucket those differently based on your fiscal structure. We won't go into that because I don't know what your fiscal structure would be, and those are different typically from site to site. My months, we can see that months are bucketed. And you can, as you can see, build upon what you've already done. For instance, we're using the actual days to build our months. As you can see, you can tell it what to use up there, and we've got days selected. So for one of the new years that we've just mapped for sales, we mapped 2024, and we could tell it to use the days for that. And then, so now those are available now that we mapped those. Oops, too far there. And it makes it easier, right? So you can come in here and make sure that these are mapped accordingly, so that your months are defined as needed. So that's nice that, obviously you're going to want to do your days first because that's the baseline. And then you're going to build your other time periods off of your days, at least for your months. Your quarters can be built off of your months. So you can actually use the months to build your quarters. And again, those are available. Once you map those will become available and the dates will populate there. And then you complete and save that. So those are the mapping exercises you'll go into to make sure that you're mapped for the new years. And you want to make sure that you do it for all the different structures. For instance, for monthly, you would have to do, for your monthly structures like forecasts and budgets. You would for calendar months, you could actually use your calendar. This is where you can actually generate things automatically by clicking on perform and selecting calendar there. You can very quickly create these months. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, do it manually because it's really simple. Just again, watch out for leap year. 2024 is a leap year. Just make sure you accommodate for it. And then for 2025, obviously you don't want to accommodate for it. And then finally, we need to go into our connector piece. This is on the viewer server. Again, this is a piece that we want to make sure that for those new years, we want to make sure that we've got those selected within the connector so that users can then select them within their views. So within this piece, you'll go into your measure groups, you'll right click and select edit. And then for instance, for sales, we know that we have some of the new years that we've created, and those are now available for me to select and turn those on and save that so that that data becomes available for the users. Okay, so you'll need to do that for all the ones that you're storing data for. Actual sale, I don't have data for all of this. Obviously, this is just demo stuff, but you're going to have some of these will be deselected, so you can ignore those. Just go into the ones that you have selected and make sure that you turn on make sure that you turn on those years. Because if you don't, the users won't see him in January. He's going to roll around and they're going to freak out. They're going to call you. You're going to have to quit playing with your new toys and, get back to work. So, again, this is something that we provide. If this is something that you need help with, we provide a service for this. If you're a managed services customer, this is something we do for you automatically. So as part of our managed services agreement. So if that's something you're concerned about, we'll take care of it. And then if you're a hosted cloud customer, same thing there. You don't need to worry about it. We automatically take care of that for you.